Mitch Stephen. Welcome. Mitch is a good friend of mine. I've actually not a great friend. Mitch and I go way back. We are the best of friends.
We've talked quite often over a long period of time, but
Yeah.
we're kind of far apart to break bread or have a beer together. So
Well, we're going to change that. We're going to change that, Mitch. So, Mitch is a full time real estate investor, has been for 2.5 decades. Today, we're going to talk about how to achieve positive cash flow and in your real estate investing. And Mitch has written a series of books, which is My Life in 1,000 Houses. And then that's broken into a series of books. The first one coming out in 2008, which is Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. And then following that, My Life in 1,000 Houses, 200 plus ways to find bargain properties. And then following that, My Life in 1,000 Houses, the art of owner financing. So, Mitch, I'm glad to have you today. It's a privilege, and welcome.
hey, thanks for having me, Dan. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. You make things easy.
Hey, we like to make things easy. So Mitch, so tell us a little bit about yourself. So, tell us what I want to just dive right into it, if it's okay with you. Would that be all right?
Sure.
All right. I want to know if you could share with us about your path to financial freedom.
Um, I could. There's different versions of that story. The long one, the medium one, the short one. So I'll keep it short. But in in short, I tried my very hardest to find where I belong. I was always an entrepreneur. I always had the business of the month that I was trying to start while I was bartending, on a shoestring with absolutely no capital to put in at all, just trying to make a grassroots company all the time. I failed at a whole bunch of companies, but I always kept my good credit and I always kept my word. If I owed somebody some money, then I paid them back, which might have been why it took me so long to find myself, because every time I'd fail in a business, I would make sure everyone got paid back, which would take another year and a half before I'd start on another business, instead of just screwing everybody and leaving and starting a new business the next week. You know what I mean? But I never could do that. So then I accidentally bought some condos. I bought one to live in that was seller financed, where the seller let me make payments to him. And then I bought
What year is
another
this? What year is this, Mitch? Sorry to interrupt.
like in the mid, like 1983, 1984, something like that.
All right. So you're bartending at this time?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
bartending.
got it.
And then I actually, I sell those two condos at one point, and I make more money than I'd ever seen in my life, and I have it in my bank account, and it makes, as much as I make at my job in a whole year.
Sure.
It wasn't a tremendous amount of money, but it was more money than I'd ever seen, and I would have to work a whole year and spend not one penny to save that much money. So kind of had the light bulb go off, like, this real estate thing that I just accidentally screwed up and did was pretty cool. Maybe I better learn about this. And so I started reading, and I read books like Nothing Down by Robert Allen. And but even then, it's real easy to read these concepts. You don't need money to make money in real estate. I mean, a lot of people go, well, that's just BS. Well, it's not BS.
You need a good deal.
But you got to own the concepts in your heart. You have to understand the parameters of how that would work. If you don't have any money, how does it work? Well, I'm here to tell you. Everyone I know started out broke. I started out broke. I don't know very many people that started out wealthy. And some of the ones that started out wealthy got into real estate. Then they went broke, and then they had to start from zero because they didn't understand the business. When you start with zero, you understand the business. You know how to run real lean and how to run real fast, because you don't have any reserves.
You ever been below zero?
Excuse me?
Have you ever been below zero?
Oh yeah, I've lost. Oh, below zero. Yeah. There was a time when I definitely owed more than I was worth, because I wasn't worth anything and I owed money. But I call that the time in the woods. And I think the time in the woods is really important for people. You kind of got to cut yourself off from mommy and daddy and the tit, and quit taking hands out from people, and just, play a little game. if I don't find a way to make some money, I'm going to starve and see what happens. The body.
When you were at that time in the woods, Mitch, how did you look at yourself? Did you see yourself as a wealthy man?
No, I saw myself in the beginning was it was not good. It was very downer. It was depressing.
Okay.
I'd lost my significant other girlfriend but because I was so broke, it was just pathetic. And I looked at it as a bad thing for a while, but then as I started going, I realized, you can reinvent yourself at the bottom. You can be whoever you want to at the bottom because no one gives a damn. And, so I just started reading and started setting parameters for myself like this. I want to be this guy. I'm never going to be that guy again. I'm not going to be this guy. One of the things I said was, I'm never going to have a job again in my life. And this body's going to have to figure out how to eat or it's going to starve. I'm just going to put I was told by a mentor guy that was a prisoner of war at Castro's hotel. He got captured in the Bay of Pigs as a Cuban coming back to fight Castro. And so they didn't treat him very nice every day. And when I asked him, how did you survive that? He said the human body is the most adaptable thing in the world. And if you give it just enough protein and just enough water, and if the mind doesn't go, it'll figure everything out. And here I was in the greatest country in the world in a very nice city, had a great family, had all this support. The chances of me not getting enough food or water was nil. So the only thing I had to police myself from was taking on a job. My friend Carlos had to police his mind by keep from going insane because they weren't feeding him, but barely enough. And they were beating him every day and doing a lot of bad. And he didn't even know how long it was going to go on for. It was just every day was another day, and there was no end.
How long did it go on?
2 years.
Wow.
If you watch that song Bridges with Tom Hanks,
okay,
that guy that negotiated that release of those prisoners, the next people he negotiated to release was about 2,400 Cubans out of that prison.
Okay.
So anyway, so I started thinking about that. He says, here I am afraid, and no one's beating me. And I'm certainly going to get enough clean water. And I doubt seriously that I'm going to not be able to find food with the friends and the support and the town I live in. I even just look at the homeless, and I was willing to go there, man. I was willing to go stand on a corner with a piece of cardboard if I needed some money to eat because I was not going to take a friggin' job because I believed what that old man said. And he said, the mind will figure everything out. So I wanted to quit being dependent on people, but I didn't know how. But I knew if I painted myself in that corner, and by the way, I was single and I didn't have any kids. So it's a very important factor. It's a very important factor of that. So I decided to get out there, and if the vultures started circling around, I might call home to get some food. But other than that, I'm not. And I never had to call home. I never went home. I never had to ask anybody for anything. And I never had to beg in the street. But there were some days, it wasn't very pretty. I worked all day long and made like $50 for the whole day, and I put in a long day,
What were you doing then? Was that bartender or was that something else when you're making $50 a day?
It wasn't even a day. It was just that day. There would be another day I didn't make any, but, it got kind of scary. I was inventing services or something to try to get me enough to go till I could find the real thing. You know what I mean? But I needed to eat that day, so I needed to be able to do something fast. And so it was like lawn, I would do lawn maintenance or whatever. I had a lot of friends, so I need to make some money today. Anybody need something done, and then I would get a job.
Got it. And so you accidentally made some money on some condos.
Yeah.
And that was your first sort of glimpse into.
I had made the money on those condos before I cut myself off, and then I went through that money.
Okay.
And then I just kept remembering real estate. So then I bought the Dave Del Dotto and Carlton sheets, and I started listening to them. The problem was it was kind of over my head, and without someone to ask about it, I couldn't get my arms around some of these concepts. They were so foreign to me.
Okay.
Very foreign. So I'm a slow learner too, and I don't read all that well. I probably read a lot better now, but I mean, back at the time, I wasn't a big reader. I would make myself read things, and I was learning how I learn. You know, they didn't teach me how to learn in school. I learned how to memorize, but that's all. I didn't learn how to learn. And
how did you use that information to what happened? So you're getting the Carlton sheets and you're getting the curriculum that you may not quite understand. You're immersing yourself into it. What happens next?
Well, I read that book Nothing Down by Robert Allen, and he kind of had the audacity to suggest that you could be in real estate with no money. And I thought, well, damn, if no money means you can get in real estate, then I can buy the whole friggin' town like tomorrow, because I'm so broke I could buy like this whole place.
I got a whole bunch of no money. I'm in.
Yeah. So I started studying him, and one of the things he said was, when you don't have money, you have to pick certain strategies, and you have to do things that are geared towards, like bandit signs. And well, I don't have money for bandit signs. I can't even pay, $100 for 100 bandit signs. And so you go start collecting political signs and cutting them up and flipping them over, and you just do whatever you got to do. You know what I mean? And then you get a house, and then you don't know what to do. So, and that happened a couple times. I had perfectly good deals. I just didn't know what to do. 25 years ago, the internet and coaching and help was not as obvious as it is now.
Sure.
Along with a lot of that obvious stuff comes a lot of bullshit artists, but you should be able to weed them out if you'll just do some research before you pull the trigger on somebody. And I messed around and we all started with wholesaling, but I kind of skipped the wholesaling thing. I mean, I don't even remember doing a wholesale deal, although I'm sure I did. I just knew I needed to find money on these houses. And back in 25 years ago, houses were $15,000 in San Antonio, Texas. You could pick up houses in the lesser parts of town for 12, 15, 18, 20, 25,000 bucks every day. And all you had to do was get in the classifieds. And if you got up at 8 o'clock in the morning and started working the classifieds, by noon, you'd have a perfectly good deal. I mean, the good old days. What a trip that was. I mean, you could just, if you screwed up, you'd get 2 houses under contract where they said, yeah, because then you wouldn't know how you're going to get the money for both of them. But I had 45 credit cards. Well, I didn't have 45 credit cards, but I needed to buy a house for like 15,000 bucks, and I didn't have any money. And the guy was demanding I close right now. So I said, well, I got these credit cards. I wonder how much the cash advances are. And then I found out, that I could get enough money from the credit card to buy the house.
Okay.
And then I could get another $10,000 off another credit card to fix the house. And then I could transfer the whole balance to a 0% offer from another company. You know what I mean?
You got you got all financed 0% at that point.
Yeah, and then I found out some of them they don't all just go 6 months. Some of them go 0% for 12 months, and some of them go 0% for 18 months. Or 1% for 18 months, or 2. So I quickly, this was a different day and time. I could go out, and because I had good credit, and because I had taken the time during all those failures to make sure I paid everybody back and worked everything out, I had good credit. So back in the day, it's not that way now, but back in the day, if you had good credit and you applied for any credit card, you got it, and you got all of its maximum limits, and you got everything. So I caught on to that real fast, and I ended up going out and collecting 45 credit cards where I could put about $500,000 on my kitchen table if I wanted to. It would take me about a week and a half or about 10 days because, it's kind of a slow, cumbersome process, but sure. I could get a lot of money on my kitchen table, and apparently a lot of people did and then left for Mexico. So now they have different rules. They watch how much your unsecured available limits are, but back then they didn't. So at one point I had $250,000 worth of credit card debt, but I had $500,000 worth of houses, and I was turning these houses within 30 to 60 days, and they were 0%. So all I really had to do was police myself that when I sold a house, and because I would get all the money, if I sold a house for $60,000, I would get the entire $60,000 put in my account because there was no debt against the house because the debt was on a credit card, which had no tie to the house. And
so it was unsecured debt. You just had to make sure that you paid off the
Yeah, I had to make sure that I went and I opened up that file and found the 2 or 3 credit cards, because the rule was if you put one dollar on that credit card for that house, it goes in that house's file, and it doesn't get any other money put on it from anywhere else. So it was real easy to figure out how much I owed. When I sold the house and $60,000 went in my bank account, I was called up. My wife said, honey, you need to open up the file to 123 Main Street, call all the credit cards that are taped to the inside cover and find out how much we owe, send them all a check, overnight delivery certified, and then call me and tell me how much we sent out so I can figure out how much profit we made on this house. And we'll be done.
And make sure you pay your taxes. And then
well, that was a whole nother lesson.
I thought that there's commonalities in these conversations.
Yeah, you think you're rich for a little while, and then you get $100,000 bill. You know, and, oh well. You know, the good news though is you don't pay $100,000 in taxes unless you make a lot of money.
Sure. Yeah. My CPA about once a year, he goes, Dan, there's some great news. And I'm like, I hate it when you tell me that.
Yeah, and then there's some bad news. Yeah, well,
his great news is I owe a bunch of money to the IRS, which means that I probably made a dollar or two, and that from his perspective is great news. I guess some perspective.
Yeah, but so one of the things that you just need to know, well, I mean, it's in any business. It's not just the real estate business. Making the money is just the beginning of the equation. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's all things to learn past that. How to make money without spending your life in the business. How to make money without getting ripped off. How to make money without paying exorbitant taxes. There's always another level to go to, and you're always like behind. I mean, you don't start taking the course on how to mitigate your taxes until you get hit with a $475,000 tax bill, and then you go, holy shit, maybe I better start going to a different. I gotta learn that. Yeah, maybe I need to go to a different seminar right now, because apparently I've gotten good at the making the money seminar, but now I need to go to the seminar on how do you stop paying taxes. So, I started buying self-storage businesses for $1.5 million or $2 million, or, I wasn't writing checks for cash for these things, but I was putting a decent amount down and getting a great loan. And then I got all that depreciation on $2 million, while
would you partner on those, or that was like your strategy was basically find, fix and flip, get your credit card out, acquire, get your other credit card out, do the repairs, flip it, and then you stacked up some cash and then bought some self-storage? Is that?
It took me a long time to figure that out, what I needed to do, because you go through these phases. You're making all this money, you're going out, you're wholesaling, or you're fixing and flipping. And then after a while, the burnout starts to set in, and you figure out, I just have a job that I have all the liability for everything that goes wrong. And to make another house happen, I got to go make it happen again. And then you start thinking about cash flow, which is the point of the deal. And so really what I do is I take the one-time cash events, which is, and I'm quoting Jack Bosch here from the book Forever Cash. You take the one-time cash events, like flipping or wholesaling, find a house, find a deal, you make a move, you get paid, it's over. One-time check. Find a house, fix it up, sell it retail, list it with whatever, sell it, you get one check, it's over. Temporary cash was like me. I sell houses on 30-year notes. I buy a house for 50, I sell it for 100 with 10,000 down. I carry the 90 for 30 years, and I make the difference between the guy paying me the payment on 90 and what I got to pay on 50. Plus, I picked up 10 grand at least as a down payment going forward. But that's all fine and dandy, and I got this cash flow coming in. I average about $475 a month per house that I own or finance to my buyer. I have 300 of those right now, more or less. It changes every day, but sure. So you can do the math. 475 times 300, that's some good cash flow. And I'm not a landlord. So if the air conditioner breaks on the house that they're in, I sold the house to them on payments. It's not my air conditioner. It's
your owner financing it.
Yes. So when I get the money for the mortgage payment, there's no reason to write a check back out, with the possible exception of if they want to, if I have to foreclose on them.
Have you had to foreclose a lot?
Oh, in my career, over 2,000 houses. Yeah, but you get better at that. And so I used to have a 10 or 15% foreclosure rate. And today, even during COVID, the last 4 years, 0.02%.
Yeah, that's a good
you learn what not to do, and you learn who you're looking for. And the biggest thing of all is you learn to wait till they show up, and don't get anxious. Just that being said, on the last 300 houses, last time we did an analysis on the last 300 houses, we averaged 9 days on the market and 12% down. So
let me ask you a question about that, Mitch. So it seems to me the most viable candidate that's going to want owner financing typically is going to be somebody that can't get financing through a bank, given the low interest rates in today's market.
They all can't get a loan from a bank. You know, and that's also what Dodd-Frank. See, Dodd-Frank they were so dumb. They wanted to make sure that we tested to see if these people could get a traditional mortgage before they just went to 8 and 9 and 10% seller finance notes. Well, we already knew they couldn't get a loan, or they wouldn't even have showed up at our front door. So that's legislation at its finest. You know,
how do you mitigate that to have a risk that allows for a 0.02 or 0.2 for a closure?
Well, we're dealing with people that have bad credit,
of course,
but the debacle is over, and the credit reporting people are not forgiving them, but we can see where the debacle is over. You know, I don't want to sell someone a house on payments when they're in the middle of not paying everybody. That doesn't make sense, because you're just going to be the next person they're not paying. But if you can look at their credit report and go, well, they were going along fine for years, then for 2 years, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. I don't know what happened.
They lost a job, something happened.
And then the last 9 months, they're right on track again.
Okay. So you're looking for the anomalies, not the historic patterns of being, bad credit risk.
I'm looking for good people that had bad things happen, and the credit bureaus are not forgiving them via the credit score, but they've passed the problem. They just can't get a loan now because those problems put some scars on their credit, but they're past that problem. You know, one lady said, I said, what happened here this 2 years? She says, well, my husband was a truck driver. I was a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids under 15, and he got killed in a truck wreck. I said, okay, so that explains why everything's messed up. What happened where it started clearing up the last 12 months? Then I married a guy that made 4 times more than a truck driver. Okay, well, problem solved.
Right. So that's the strategy today. So I want to sort of tie all this in, because that strategy has evolved through the years. We started where you were 25 years ago, put it on a credit card. What would you do if you were starting today? Because those, some of those things are not as viable today.
The houses are more expensive. Credit cards are not as whimsical. Yeah. Although
what would you do?
You learn how to raise private money, because right now I have about $26 million out in the street that on the first of the month I got to make payments on.
Okay.
$26 million. Okay.
It's private investors.
Yeah, not private investors.
Non-recourse. Got it. Okay.
Non-recourse, collateral only loans. Every loan stands on its own. They got $300,000 to get out. I call them and say, I got one loan we can do for $74,000. You'll be in a first lien position on this house over here at 123 Main Street. Check it out. I can sell it for at least 35% more with owner financing than what I'm going to borrow from you. I never borrow over 65% of what I can owner finance the house for. And I average borrowing 58%. So if I'm going to owner finance a house for $100,000, I will never borrow more than $65,000 from a person and give them a first lien. But I average $58,000 on that $100,000. That's what I average. I don't borrow money just to borrow money. I borrow money to get what I need for the deal. Sometimes I only borrow 40%. If I can buy a $100,000 house for $40,000, I'm just borrowing 40, because I believe I want to wait for those windfalls, not cash in on them up front and then have a problem to solve. When those windfalls come, they'll come, and I collect payments instead. So I have $26 million out in the street right now at an average of about 8%. And then I sell my houses on 30-year notes at 10%. So I'm making 2% on all my borrowed money. So I effectively have like a $26 million CD at 2% right now, which is better than what the banks are paying. Okay. Sure. At the moment. And then on my equity, like the difference between, if I buy a house for 50 and I sell it for 100,000 owner finance with 10,000 down or 10% down, I got 90,000 that my buyer's paying me on. Well, so the difference between what I paid for the house, 50 and 90, is 40. I make the entire 10% on that equity piece, you know. So it's a really good business. And if the only thing you ever learned how to do was take your deals and learn how to sell them to private individuals, I say sell them, sell the idea that they could loan money to you and have that property as collateral so that they either get paid or they get a property. That's
and
where
they're taking the first trust on that, so that if the homeowner, let me make sure I'm understanding as well.
If they don't get paid, they're going to get a house.
Right, got it.
The bottom line, they have a first lien on it, and they made, it could work that my buyer's paying me, but I'm keeping the money and I'm not paying my lender. Then he could just walk into my position, and he, instead of collecting 50 from me, since I wasn't giving him payment on the 50, he could move into my position and collect on 90 at 10% from the guy in the house. But why in the hell would I miss a payment if my guy's paying me? I strongly believe if you're collecting money on a house and you're not making the payments to the person you owe, you're a scumbag. You need that's why they made ropes.
Mitch, how do you really feel about that?
We're from Texas. That's why they made ropes and trees for people like that. Just go hang them. So the only way that I would ever give up a house is let's just say it this way. Since 1996, I bought about 2,000 houses. I bought a house every 4 to 5 days for over 2 decades. Okay. I've done 95% of it with private money. I've never given a house to anybody. I've never not made my payment. I've never filed bankruptcy. I've never been foreclosed on any property, and I've never filed Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. And I'm way stronger now than I ever have been. And I built that reputation or that career statement starting with zero and being broke, and had the potential to run into some problems where maybe I couldn't pay. Today, I don't even get close to a place where I can't pay, because it would take something cataclysmic, which is why I pay 8, 9, and 10%. You're going to share with me in that cataclysmic possibility of 1 in 5 billion or something, like if Russia or North Korea drops a dirty bomb in downtown San Antonio and pollutes property in a 50-mile radius. I mean, if that happens,
we're all screwed.
Well, yeah, so I don't know what to tell you, but it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. It was nothing I did, and I'll still try to figure out how to mitigate those properties if there's anything to do about it. But that's why I can sleep at night. I owe $26 million just to private people. I got other things I owe on, but those things are
Mitch,
mini storages and bank loans, So how do you sleep at night? Well, I just don't borrow very much. I don't borrow on bad deals. I only borrow on good deals. And then I don't borrow very much. And my loans are non-recourse collateral only. So
if you were to take, because you've got a lot of, just a lot of things going on there that, in the short period of conversation that we've had. And I know that through your journey, you've had, setbacks that you've learned from. I know you've had successes that were, predicted successes. You probably had some forward momentum that was luck, and maybe some backward momentum that was luck as well. If you were just to take all that up and encapsulate it into one piece of advice that you would give to an entrepreneur, an investor, or a salesperson, what would that be? What would you tell, I guess, Mitch 25 years ago?
Failure's got to be part of the plan. Nobody gets anywhere without failing. I mean, there's no way around it. So in my first book, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, I didn't know what I was doing, but when I came up with the moat theory in my own little simple head, I was trying to come up with a map that I could follow in my life so that when I failed, I didn't go under and drowned. You know what I mean? Like when I went under, I could tread water for long enough, because it's a whole, a lot of people gamble so far out that when if they miss, they're sunk. They lose their house, they lose their car, they lose their wife, they lose their marriage. They maybe have to I don't know, get separated from the kids. I mean, why do you have to risk that much? Let's take it in some smaller increments, and let's get some cash flow coming in that pays for your basic standard of living, and then let's put a moat around it. You know, moats were around castles to keep bad things out and to keep the good things in the center. And then whenever you want to go try something, you drop the drawbridge and you go out from your home, and all your protected, you need enough.
You keep that protected behind the
moat. Keep that
moat.
sacred. So like if it takes you $4,000 a month to operate your household, not go on a vacation, not go eat the fancy steak with your wife. I'm talking about to pay the bills.
Right. Then
your first job, as far as I'm concerned, is to figure out how to get $4,500 a month coming in. Okay, that's going to come hell or high water. And then when you can save up some extra above that, then you can drop the drawbridge and you can run out into the wilderness, and you can try some ideas. And if you lose that money, you just come charging back over the drawbridge, pull it back up, and you can rest and recuperate in there, lick your wounds, but all your bills are paid for, and start to figure out why were there that many people hidden in those places I didn't know? Why did they have these bows that could shoot arrows way further than I imagined? And then you start to make a new plan on how you're going to go out and do it again. So you're setting yourself up to figure out how to win. It's just like that Pacman game behind there. We used to play it for a while, and you start to figure out how it worked, and pretty soon you could be a genius on that Pacman game. But it's the same thing in real life. You got to go out, figure out where the obstacles are, how you go under or around, or what button or knob you got to click to eliminate the obstacle so that you can go further. And every time you hit an obstacle and it smashes you, if you don't go under or don't die or don't quit, then you can start to figure out, okay, how do I avoid that pain next time? And so all I've done is go out, fall down, get up, dust myself off, go back out, fall down, go home, get up, dust off, go back. And I just did it enough times to where I figured out how to play the game.
Mitch, 1000houses.com. So I know you got a lot of free stuff on there for investors and entrepreneurs. Tell us about what you have there available, and how do we get access to that?
Sure. Go to 1000houses.com. That's 1000houses.com/free stuff. And over there, there's the first 100 pages of that book I just was talking about, My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. You can go there and get the first 100 pages digitally downloaded to you right now to see if you think it's worth reading before you buy it or whatever. Then there's even an offer. I'll give you a free hard copy of the book if you just pay the postage and handling, which costs about $7. And I'm really not making any money off that, guys. I'm just trying to get you the book. This stuff is getting expensive to mail and envelopes and all that stuff. So I'll give you the book for free if you just pay for it to get to wherever you want it to get to. And, I have webinars there that describe case studies and go through the intricate details of the money and how it works and how I'm thinking about it. We've got a copy of the Tuesday night call. Every Tuesday night I have a group coaching call. There's an hour and 45-minute archived call there that you can listen to see exactly how those calls go, to see if you might entertain group coaching or once a week call in and get your questions answered. There's all kinds of things there. It's more things than I can even list.
All right. So if you are listening to this right now and you are not driving, 1000houses.com/free stuff. That's 1000houses.com/free stuff. And if you are driving right now, just remember to come back here, check out the show notes, and we'll put a link to that. And it seems like a lot of cool stuff there that you can get for free. Mitch Stephen, thank you very much for joining us today. And I just love listening to you, and thank you for your mentorship to our audience. Appreciate you.
Hey man, it's always a pleasure. I have a podcast as well. You can find all that stuff over at the site. And the podcast is to help people figure out where they belong and how they can find their own financial freedom. Whether you do what I want to do or you do what one of the guys I'm interviewing trying to do, it's like what you're doing. Just trying to help people find where they belong. Because to me, the most important thing is that you become financially free. Dave Ramsey, they do the primal scream when they get debt free.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in that thing, but he helps a lot of people. And for a certain kind of people, that might be the right path. I bought my first 100 houses on credit cards. Dave Ramsey would throw up on me. But I believe that if you're going to become wealthy, that financial freedom is the first step, because after you become financially free, even at the most modest level, that means you don't have to have a job. That means you have 2,600 hours a year to work on you and your passion and what it is and become the person that you want to be, which is the most important thing, to become the person that you want to be. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to buy the freedom to make that happen. And today in the United States, we buy that freedom with a little green pieces of paper called money. Okay, that's how you buy your freedom. We're not different than a lot of different things that have happened in the past. We buy our freedom, or we're slave to jobs. You know what I mean? And slaves to people that we have to answer to, that we don't want to answer to. And so learn how to get financially free. I talk a lot about it in my book. Financial freedom is the key, even at the most modest level. Get in control of the hours of your day on the most modest level. And then let's see where you go from there.
Mitch, you are awesome. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you so. Take care, Mitch. Thank you.
Dan, it was my pleasure. Thanks a bunch.
Give us a thumbs up by clicking the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe to